In school we learned scalars have magnitude and vectors have magnitude and direction. But what does this really mean?
What do you mean?
Let's face it, merely saying vectors also have direction doesn't always help us wrap our head around the difference between scalars and vectors. What is this direction thing and how does it play out? Let us look at, for example, mass and weight. Imagine an object floating around in space. A ball, a rock, an asteroid, a satellite, even a planet. Whatever it is, it has mass. It's a tangible, real-life object made up of atoms and or molecules. It is stuff. It has mass. But the minute it comes near planet Earth, the Earth's gravity starts acting on it and now the object has weight. Something's wrong with this picture and you know it. You know that arrow is supposed to point this way, in this direction. See, that is why weight is a vector. But what about something like speed and velocity, two words that sound like they're interchangeable? Let us illustrate this difference with this example of two cars. Red car and green car traveling from town A to town B, which are 100 kilometers apart. 100 because it's a nice round convenient number, and both cars are traveling at 100 kilometers an hour, and so they will both reach their destination in the same time, 1 hour. Obviously, because they both have the same speed and in this case the same velocity as well. Same speed and same velocity. Does this mean there can be a scenario where these cars have same speed and different velocities? Or different speeds and same velocity? To find out, let's run these cars again. Oh, but this time the difference is they don't necessarily have to enter town B from the same road. They can go in through any of the many entry points. From here, it doesn't matter. The end goal is
your mission, should you choose to accept it,
reach town B somehow. So here we go, once again both cars traveling at the exact same speed, but the green car has taken a diagonal road which happens to be twice as long. So obviously the green car will take twice as long to reach. Now this is where the difference in speed and velocity becomes obvious. You see, when we talk about velocity, there is an element of direction involved. All we're concerned about here in this example is how long the cars take to reach from town A to town B. Or to simplify this further, from line A to line B. Our intended direction of travel is this. So we are only concerned about how fast the car moves in this and this direction only. Green car has taken the scenic route, so even though the speed is the same, it's double the distance, so its effective speed has been cut in half. In other words, the velocity has been reduced to half. By the way, this is also a good example to illustrate the difference between distance, a scalar, and displacement, a vector. So even though green car traveled a longer distance, the displacement, that is the movement along this direction, has remained the same. And this is all we care about. I mean, the car can travel as much as it wants, but in the end we are only concerned about how much it has moved from here to here, the displacement. But if we also take into account all the twists and turns, that's when we get distance. Distance, displacement, speed, velocity. Now this is a scenario where they both had the same speed but different velocities. But if the green car decides to go at 200 kilometers an hour to compensate for the longer distance, then both red car and green car would reach at the same time, in 1 hour. Now in this scenario, both of them have the same velocity but different speeds. Get it?
Understood, sir.
Now let us go back to the earlier example where red car and green car are traveling at the exact same speed and green car is taking the longer diagonal route. Now here's a simple trick to visualize the difference between speed and velocity. We simply need to view from this angle. And to further simplify this, let's replace the cars with markers that represent their position. We don't really need to see the cars, we just need to know where they are. And action! Once again, they're both traveling at the same speed and the green car is taking the diagonal route, which is 2x longer, but the green car appears to be moving slower than the red. Because from this angle, we don't see the diagonal or whatever path the car chooses to take. All we can perceive is movement in this direction. From here, we can perceive the displacement and the velocity. Now, how does this affect calculations? Let's move back up to the top view. It's pretty obvious that if we change the angle of the diagonal, we will be changing the distance. Not the displacement, distance. Now if we increase the angle, we increase the distance. And if we increase the distance, keeping the speed constant, obviously the velocity decreases. Now if we keep increasing the angle, the distance keeps increasing and the velocity keeps decreasing, the distance gets longer, the velocity keeps dropping, and we keep going until the angle becomes 90 degrees, and now the velocity of the car in this direction is 0. It doesn't matter if the car is moving at a speed of 100 kilometers, 200, 300, 400 kilometers per hour. It can move faster than the speed of sound, but it doesn't matter, because the car is not moving a single inch in the direction we want it to move in, meaning the total displacement is 0.
Nothing. Nothing. Nothing.
And the velocity is 0. At this rate, the car will never reach line B. Now you do realize that the velocity of the car depends on this angle here, or as we say in mathematical language, it's a function of this angle. The velocity is directly proportional to the cosine of the angle. In fact, the velocity is speed multiplied by cosine of the angle. Meaning if the angle is 90 degrees, we know that cosine of 90 equals 0 and the velocity, as we can see here, is 0. And on the other hand, if the angle is 0, we have cosine of 0 equals 1, and that gives us 100 kilometers per hour, the maximum possible velocity for the given speed. Because the value of the vector depends on direction, it's absolutely necessary to consider these angles in equations and calculations involving vectors. You can't just simply add up vectors like numbers. I mean, you can if they conveniently happen to be pointing in the same direction, but if the 4 Newton force happens to be pointing in the opposite direction, then the force becomes 4 multiplied by cosine of 180 degrees, which is 4 multiplied by -1, which is -4. So net force becomes 6 minus 4 newtons, which is 2 newtons in this direction, the direction of the bigger force. But what if one of the forces is at an angle? That's when you draw a box. Actually a parallelogram, and the diagonal of this parallelogram represents the magnitude and direction of the resultant force. Or you can draw a triangle if you prefer that. And that brings us to a very interesting application of this principle. It is because we understand the nature of vectors that modern high-speed commercial jet aviation is possible. It's the reason why wings of high-speed aircraft are swept backwards, enabling aircraft to fly faster. The more swept back the wings are, the faster the aircraft, because the incoming airflow is split into two vectors, span-wise flow and chord-wise flow. It's a way to basically trick the incoming air into thinking that the aircraft is moving slower than it actually is, so that we can avoid transonic airflow, which causes a whole bunch of complications. Well, this is a topic that deserves its own separate video. We will talk about this in more detail in the near future. Real Engineering has a couple of really good videos on the topic. You could check them out maybe. I'll link them in the description. For now, thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications, and to help us create more quality content, consider supporting us on Patreon. Follow us on the usual social media, and see you in the next one.